Today we continue our NHL Season Preview series. We're heading back east to take a look at the Toronto Maple Leafs. Have they gotten over their first round loss to the Habs last year? Have they made enough changes to take this team to the next level and have some playoff success? We'll discuss what their season should look like coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, today we're previewing the Toronto Maple Leafs for the 21-22 NHL season. We're going to take a look at the results from last year quickly to recap where things are at. Take a look at the players that have left the organization, so who's exited the Leafs, the new additions to the Maple Leafs this year, look at how their lineup should look, and then discuss what I think they're going to be able to accomplish for the coming season. So first up, let's quickly recap what happened last year and take a look at all their key statistics, including their record, which was a 35-14-7 record for 77 points. First place in the North Division. Obviously, that North Division wasn't the greatest competitive competition-wise. It certainly was a lot of fun, but the Leafs certainly were the main regular season class of that division. And this is going to be a whole different year for them coming up, going back to the Atlantic. Of course, even though they finished in first place, they had a heartbreaking Game 7 loss to the Habs in the first round, dropping that first round series to Montreal after having a 3-1 series lead. So yes, another year of a first round loss, but not just a loss. After having that lead, it was even probably more difficult to deal with. Looking at their statistics, they scored 187 goals. One of the highest scoring teams in the league, number 6 overall. Goals against was really improved, 148 against for 7th best. The power play, even though overall for the whole year was at 20%, which is pretty respectable, the second half of the year and into the playoffs, it was not good at all. It was really a big part of their playoff failure, and even into end of the year going into the playoffs, you knew that they were not clicking at a good rate at all, and it was going to be a problem that they had to solve, and unfortunately could not get that done. The PK could use some work. It was at 78.5% last season, which is not really good enough, especially if you want to go on a deep playoff run. Now, looking at their goal scoring and point leaders for last year, they were led by Mitch Marner in points with 20 goals and 47 assists for 67 points. So Marner takes the lead with points and assists. Austin Matthews leads the way in goals with 41, adding 25 assists for 66 points. And John Tavares adds 19 goals and 31 assists for 50 points in third place. Of course, Tavares going down in Game 1 of the playoffs obviously had a role too in their playoff loss to the Montreal Canadiens. And Matthews scored 41 goals while having a wrist injury and did miss a little bit of time as well. So I'll be curious to see how they all come into this year and see what they can do one more time here, this time on a full 82-game season. Hopefully everything goes well and they can play a full season. Of course, we haven't had that for the past 2 years. Now, taking a look now at how this roster has changed. Let's take a look first at the exits, and then we'll jump into the Maple Leaf additions. We had some big names leave town. There's no getting around that. The Leafs are going to be a different team this year. One of the big losses, of course, was Zach Hyman, who signed a pretty rich contract with the Edmonton Oilers. He departs via free agency. That's going to be a huge loss for them. Freddie Anderson departs after 5+ years in Toronto. He signed a 5-year, 5 times $5 million contract after being acquired from the Anaheim Ducks. Was a really solid goaltender. Certainly had his moments when he was a little bit inconsistent, especially the last few years, but overall brought a lot of stability to that team. Jumbo Joe Thornton, who was there in a 1-year deal, departs. He goes to the Florida Panthers. Alex Galchenyuk was not brought back. He ends up going to Arizona on a PTO. We'll see where things work out there. Zach Bogosian, even though he, for the most part, was a good defenseman for the Leafs, and I think he had a good time playing there. I don't think there was any regrets that way. He goes back to Tampa, and I think a lot of that is just to do with the travel and the COVID rules and everything. Living in Canada while being an American and having an American family and all that was just a little bit problematic and difficult with all the rules, and I think that's the main catalyst. Plus, they were able to give him a second year on his contract, which I'm not sure Toronto was able and willing to. Deadline acquisition, Nick Foligno departs via free agency. That trade did not work out at all at the deadline. He was not 100% either, which certainly contributed to that, but at the end of the day here, Nick Foligno was acquired for a first-round pick, and it didn't get past the first round. He never scored a single goal, and I really like Nick Foligno, and I think he really would have been a good fit there had things been a little bit different, but it never worked out, never materialized. Nick Patan, who's been with the organization for a few years, mostly playing in the minors with a little bit of limited NHL time, departs as well. Ben Hutton and David Riddick, who were both deadline acquisitions just for some extra insurance, also depart via free agency. Actually, Hutton hasn't really gone anywhere because he's not signed. David Riddick does have a new deal, but Hutton has not. And Scott Sabourin goes back to the Senators. Going to likely play on a two-way contract, mostly in the AHL for them. Now, getting into the new additions to the Maple Leafs, who are the players that they're going to try to replace these guys? It's not, some big shoes to fill here in some cases. We have Nick Ritchie and Ondrej Kase, both pending restricted free agents who did not get qualified by the Boston Bruins. Both become UFAs. Both go to Toronto on free agent deals. Obviously, Ritchie's going to be looking for a top 6 role, especially based on the contract they gave him and what he's getting paid. I fully suspect him to get a first crack at that. I wouldn't be shocked if he plays with Matthews and Marner, trying to be that new Zach Hyman type of role. I don't know how well that's going to work, but certainly I expect them to experiment with that. They also signed Peter Mrazek, who's going to be taking the place of Freddie Anderson. Of course, Jack Campbell's been a really solid goalie for the Leafs, but Mrazek also, I suspected they'd want more experience to go with a 1A, 1B type of scenario, so he's brought in for that. Obviously, he and Freddie Anderson ended up swapping spots, which is kind of weird when you think about it, but that's basically what happened. David Comp, another RFA in Chicago, didn't get qualified, gets snatched up by the Leafs. That's the 3 players they've done that with. So we'll see essentially where they all place these guys on the lineup and how they all work out. You get Michael Bunting coming from Arizona. He was a Group 6 free agent, ended up getting UFA status, and obviously has connections to Keefe and Dubas from the junior days. And Bunting's a player who could be, one of those guys that you sign. He's not a big name. A lot of people might not know who he is, but he could have an impact. I think this guy could really emerge this year as a real player for them, but time will tell. And of course, they brought in Curtis Gabriel for some extra muscle from the San Jose Sharks. And they do have a couple of players on PTOs, which will be difficult to sign based on the cap situation, but like I mentioned in a video in the past day or two, they could be making some other trades within the forward group to make room for them if they choose to do so. But they do have Nikita Gusev and Josh Ho-Sang both in camp on PTOs. We'll see if they end up getting contracts or how that ends up working out. Now, before we jump into the next section of the video, looking at their depth charts and predictions, we do need to pause for a moment and acknowledge the channel sponsor, Exter Smart Wallets. Top Shelf Hockey is proud to be sponsored by Exter. Forbes calls Exter the most successful smart wallet brand in the world. They certainly have high quality products, high grade leather. You can put all your cards in your wallet with RFID protection, and you can track it worldwide. That's the best part. You don't have to worry about losing your wallet and not being able to track it down. They have a great selection of products to choose from here, a variety of colors and styles, something to surely help for everyone. As you can see in the demonstration here for the product I have, this is a beautiful packaging, high quality. When you open it up, you get a high quality wallet with lots of slots for your cards. You have yourself a money clip if you want to carry cash on you here as well. And certainly, as you can see, the quality is outstanding. And here you can see the switch where you can help open up your cards. You just one little click and boom, everything fans out right in front of you. Easy to access. Your cards are protected. And here's the back where you have yet another slot. A terrific overall product, and I can't recommend these enough. Exter ships worldwide, and you can check out the link down below in the description as well as the pinned comment to buy yours today. Thanks very much for checking that promotional content out. I do greatly appreciate it. Taking a look now at dailyfaceoff.com, what their projected lineup looks like here for Toronto. They have the top line for the Maple Leafs being Matthews, Marner, and Ritchie. So as I mentioned before, no big surprise there. They have the line number 2 being Tavares, Nylander, and Kerfoot. And that very well might be the case. Obviously, with Kampf coming over from Chicago, he can play center. So it wouldn't be shocking if they try Kerfoot on the wing, where he does have a little bit more offensive upside than some of these guys, but I wouldn't be shocked either if they do give Mikheyev a chance on that line too, and maybe put Kerfoot as the number 3 center, or have him play wing with Kampf at center. Either way, the third line could end up being Kerfoot, Kampf, and Bunting. That's a possibility, but we'll see. Either way, right now they have it as Bunting, Kampf, and Mikheyev as the third line. Line juggling is bound to happen. You all know that. And then the fourth line they have is Wayne Simmons and Jason Spezza, who both re-signed on short-term deals, and Ondrej Kase making up the rest of that lineup. They have some other players that could be on there as well. You got to think about rookie Nick Robertson. Will he grab a spot? They also have guys like I said, Ho-Sang and Gusev in camp. You've got Michael Amadios around too, Joey Anderson. All those guys are going to be pushing for spots. Pierre Engvall's another guy that's an extra. So you have to think that with all that logjam of forwards there, there's a real good chance that a few of them could be traded. I wouldn't be surprised if more than one are, or they could be risked to be lost on waivers once the season rolls around. So that's a real possibility, something that the Leafs are going to have to deal with here. And if the guys on PTOs are looking good, they might be able to free up some cap space by trading away another player or two that are making more money, get them signed for less, and kind of get themselves more cap compliant heading into the year as well. That's a possibility. And looking at their blue line, you're likely going to see Riley and Brody continue to be your top pair. Muzzin and Hall will be your second pair. No big shock there. And then Sandin and Dermott will be your number 3 pair. Again, not a huge shock, but Gojin's the main player from that lineup there that's not with them anymore. Of course, you still got youngsters like a Liljegren, for example, who are going to be battling for some time. And then, of course, you get Jack Campbell and Peter Mrazek between the pipes. So ultimately, I think this team will definitely be a playoff team. I have no concerns that way. But going back to the Atlantic, I'm not really entirely convinced they can be in first place. But I'm not really convinced that they won't be either. But I think they're going to have some pretty stiff competition from teams like Tampa and Florida especially. Those two teams from the state of Florida are going to be especially tough. You get the back-to-back Stanley Cup champions and an emerging Florida Panther team that I think can really compete hard. You get the Habs last year, went to the finals. They're a different-looking team, but I think they're still going to be pretty solid. You get a team like the Boston Bruins you can never count out, of course, like the arch nemesis of the Leafs. And you get other teams that are going to be better. How much better and will they challenge for playoffs is up for debate. But even a team like Ottawa should be better. Will Detroit be better? Buffalo? Obviously, those teams likely will still be the bottom 3 in the division, at least a good chance. But the Leafs are going to have a tougher time this year. So I'm going to say they're going to be a playoff team in the top 3. I don't know exactly where they're going to finish. Like I said, I think the top 3 spots are going to be so tight. You're probably looking at a matter of a point or two likely separating them. And I could see as many as 5 teams in the Atlantic Division getting into the playoffs, where I think the Metro is going to be a little weaker this year, and we might only see 3. So that's kind of where I see things in that way. They have some tough decisions to make as far as like all the forwards, like I mentioned. I can see a few trades taking place there. They got Morgan Riley on the last year of his deal. Big decision to make there. Do they extend him? What can they afford? Do they trade him? Like, what do they do there? I don't see a trade taking place unless things go horribly wrong for them, which I don't expect either. So it's certainly tough. But my concerns really would be between the pipes. Can Jack Campbell play at the same level for a full 82 campaign and stay healthy? Mrazek missed a lot of time last year. Can he stay healthy? Obviously, I think they're both 2 good goaltenders, so realistically, they should be in good shape that way. The blue line played well last year. It's not a whole lot different, so we shouldn't really have reason to think that it won't be comparable. And up front, though, I do think that in the forward group, it's hard to predict, right? Because they lost some big names there, especially Zach Hyman is going to be a big loss for them. And like there are guys like Richie and Kasha Bunting that they're really big-time X factors for this team. We don't know how they're going to fit in and if they're going to be able to fill those roles. But, certainly, to me, they obviously have a lot of the veteran guys, like left town. Like, you're losing your Thornton. You lost Bogosian. Foligno's gone. Hyman's gone. That's a lot of experience and a lot of leadership. Now, mind you, there's still a lot left, so they should be just fine. But at the end of the day, the big question for me is, will this team be built for better playoff success? And I don't know that we can say the answer is yes, because there really isn't a whole lot really drastically different with this team. But if you look at what left town versus what come into town, I don't know. Like they should be equally as good, I think. But I just don't know that they're going to have that killer instinct like Shanahan and Dubas went on that they were missing. Is it there now? Only time will tell, but it's hard to say what playoffs will bring. And of course, we'll do playoff predictions later to see what things will look like. But for right now, for regular season previews, I think this is going to be a very different looking team. Still very offensive, still very exciting. A top 3 team that will be bound for the playoffs again. Just a matter if they can get themselves over the hump when it comes time for the playoffs, when it matters the most. So let me know what your thoughts are for your expectations for the Leafs this year. We'll discuss further. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. There's still plenty more videos and a preview series to come, as well as all your daily news and rumor updates on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.